Welcome to our Insider's Perspective series from Nurse Deck. I'm your host, Brianna, here today with Ronald Vergara. Ronald is a nurse in the ICU at UC Davis, and you have a really interesting story. I was looking through some of the notes. How did you get your start in nursing? I see you have a background, like a strong background in criminal justice, a bachelor's and a master's, right?
I actually kind of quit the master's midway through, so definitely an interesting story for sure. So I actually graduated in 2011 with my original bachelor's, which is in criminal justice, and I had this whole pathway of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I had it all planned out, where I was going to do law enforcement, and unfortunately during that time, cities and states just didn't have funding, at least in California where I am. And then there was a very long period where they just weren't hiring. So I was also taking care of my mom, who actually had cancer. So, during that period, it was kind of like an eye-opening experience. We were in the healthcare system for a while. She ultimately passed, but yeah, it was definitely a eye-opening and a heartbreaking time. But it did lead to me trying to new realization of what I felt like, how I could impact society. And during that break, it kind of worked out, I guess you could say, because it eventually led me to nursing. I was in that master's program as well, and then I just kind of had this realization, like, I'm going down the wrong path. So I actually wanted to test it out. I was never really great at sciences. And criminal justice is totally different aspect. So I wanted to do a test run. So I did LVN first. And I kind of wanted to make sure if I can get through this. And I stick it out, I must enjoy it enough to do it for the rest of my, working career.
Especially after already going through so much schooling, and you're like, starting year one with something that I'm not 100% sure is going to be like the thing,
Exactly. So I went from, studying like crime scene investigations to learning how to put a Foley catheter in. But also, the hard sciences too. Those were definitely, those are tough for me. The prereqs, I eventually got through the nursing portion. I was okay. I totally get this part. Maybe not so much the microbiome, but I can definitely, have these nursing interventions that's needed on the floor.
Did you have some idea when you were in school, like, if I can just power through the nitty gritty science, there's a lot you can do with nursing, even in forensics?
Yeah, definitely. That of course, like, prereqs are in a sense kind of like weeding out classes. And I saw it always as realistically, like, if you can do these classes, it's building your foundation for studying for nursing.
Exactly.
Getting through that was definitely tough, and it kind of opened my eyes to the different aspects of nursing, and actually opened up the fact that, like, I could always move around if I felt like, I met a goal in a certain section, and I could aspire to just try something new. And that was the hugest appeal of nursing. The mobility aspect.
Absolutely. Definitely. But I hear in California, it's still quite hard to get a job as a nurse. So I know you mentioned that part of that was the reason why you switched gears. I mean, aside from being with your mom through her care, you still have a little bit of that uphill battle there, getting placement, at least getting in the role that you want,
Right. It's definitely congested out here in California, I guess. That'd be kind of word, just like other traffic out here. It's there's always a portion of, we always talk about nursing shortages, but in a way there's just not enough schools, not enough teachers to be able to supply the demand of where nursing is going. So California school has always been impacted. So I kind of was trying to come up with a straight pathway. Never turns out that way. But while working as an LVN, I continued to take my prereqs while working. I knew that I wanted to be an RN, and I knew
Mhm.
I wanted to be in the inpatient setting.
Mhm.
In California, we really don't have a chance as LVN, LPNs. So
Yeah.
um, I really pushed for trying to get into schools in California. After about a year and a half of schools either saying, well, in essence, or it always felt like to me, I'm very motivated individual when it comes to different kinds of motivation. When a school
Mhm.
sent me a denial letter, I'm like, all right, you
It's
guys
on.
don't want me, I'll
Yeah.
figure it out,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So about a year and a half of trying to get in programs, I made the whole choice. Okay, I got some money saved up. Let me try out of state,
Mhm.
And the first school that I'll get into, the first one that says like, here's your letter, you're good
Mhm.
enough for us.
Mhm.
Um, I'll go.
Mhm.
Fortunately and unfortunately, that was Kansas City, Missouri.
Mhm.
I eventually got acceptance in Nevada, and I was like, man, that is so much closer.
Yeah. Right.
But I like to be a man of my word, and ended up going to Missouri and completing my accelerated bachelor's program. So,
Mhm.
and I was able to do my nursing education out there and see it in a different perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's a good point. I mean, I'm sure, a much different culture than
Yeah,
being in California. But yeah, I would say in a lot of the interviews that I've done, everybody's road to where they are is not a straight shot. It's like
right.
left, right, up, down, start, stop. And coincidentally, a lot of people mention their mother as their inspiration to go into nursing. So there's something to be said about that, and me myself included. So,
Yeah, I was going to mention my mom was actually a nurse, and
oh, was she?
yeah, she always kind of pushed me in a sense to do nursing. I'm Filipino, and it's a great stereotype that a lot of Filipinos go to nursing. Um, I felt like maybe I was trying to be rebellious at the time, so I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no, medical field, no, let's go left field, let's go
Yeah.
law enforcement.
Yeah. Your mom's like, uh-huh, we'll just wait and see.
Right? Yeah. When hey, that ended up turning out the way she would want it, I guess.
Yeah. Did she live to see you become a nurse?
Unfortunately, not.
Oh,
She passed away before I even finished my original bachelor's degree. So
okay.
she's
Wow.
always been a huge motivator for a lot of things
Yeah.
in the last 10 years.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm sure she'd be very proud of you now. Tell us for more heartbreaking segues here. Can you tell us about a heartbreaking moment you've had nursing?
Yeah. So I actually had it probably. So I'm currently in a new grad residency program.
Yeah.
Um, s-
Definitely
so
going to ask you about that a little bit down the road here for sure.
for sure. So yeah, it was literally probably my second week on. I was taking care of a patient, and the doctor pretty much said like, this is not looking so great.
Hmm.
So they kind of broke the news to the patient. They broke the news to the family also. And I was holding up pretty good, because I've gone through with my mom, and I already know that I'm going to be here for the patient, the family.
Yeah.
But the kicker for me was the patient was already slowly declining, but they gave enough indication. I guess culturally, it was a different culture,
Hmm.
and then something very simple that I thought like, okay, he's just kind of saying thanks. The family kind of took me aside like, oh no, this is kind of huge. He's really expressing his gratitude to you about how much care I provided for over the few days. And yeah, I don't know what happened. That busted pipe in the back of my head. I was like, okay, I need to
Oh,
go to the bathroom for a quick minute.
right. Yep.
So yeah, especially in the ICU, it goes a number of ways. It's either they get well enough to get sent to a different unit,
Yeah.
or not so much, or it can go in the decline.
Hmm.
And normally when it goes in decline, you don't really get to see that kind of reaction from the patient saying,
Right.
kind of in essence, thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that definitely that was probably my heartbreak moment so far.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be others along the way, but that's when I'll probably hang on to for the longest.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a pretty profound moment, especially because I think you steel yourself against those interactions to some degree. I mean, of course, they affect us, but
Mhm.
you have to maintain a little bit of emotional distance so that you can make it through your shift, So
Right.
to have that patient kind of reach through or weave his way around that it must have been, yeah, caught you off guard. And,
Definitely.
I can see how that would stay with you for a long time for sure. Let's get back to your residency program that you mentioned. So I am looking at my notes here that you were one of 48 that was chosen out of 800, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's correct, and thank you. Definitely a more prestigious nurse residency program,
Yeah, absolutely.
and especially me living in Northern California, there's not that many actually. So yeah, particularly for my program, it's in essence I guess transitional period of getting new grads to get more accustomed to their work environment. And for a lot of people, that sounds like, oh, orientation phase.
Right.
But for the new grad programs, they're really emphasizing, overall, it's pretty much like a 1-year program of
Right.
trying to integrate you. So they provide you with additional classes to make sure you're transitioning well. They provide preceptors that are, they're trained and certified to be official preceptors, and
Right.
kind of give you a nurturing aspect, but also giving you the nitty gritty in essence. And
Yeah.
you get best of both worlds. So it's kind of like school again, without having tests.
Yeah.
So
Right.
for a good year, we still have our courses, and we have an ample amount of time, I would say, with a preceptor. So I actually get a total of 4 months with designated preceptors that I work their schedules, and they kind of show me the ropes of the unit.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
good.
and the program itself, you with the other members of the cohort, you're kind of forming a bond outside of just your
Right.
unit also. And when we all meet up, it's usually let's go eat, let's kind of cry about what's going on, being new grads, and the growing pains of the first
Right.
year. So that brings a camaraderie aspect.
And I think it's super smart on behalf of the hospital too. I mean, it comes to like retaining nurses. Because I know a lot of new nurses that kind of show up on their first day and they're like, "You're matched with Sally," and Sally's like,
Right.
"Okay, I didn't know you were
I had
coming."
no idea.
but,
Right. I've been off for
great.
2 months, and now
Yeah.
okay.
So, what a different experience to be like, feel like you're really wanted there as a new nurse. I think that's so helpful in changing the culture of like nurses eat their young.
Right.
Because it's like the complete opposite in every sense, where you're just really supported for such a long period of time, which is way just, I'm sure, safer for patient care and for building your confidence. And like you said, the camaraderie of other people going through the same program too. So congratulations. That's going to be an amazing way to start your career out on solid
Absolutely.
ground. Where do you see yourself? I know you're in the ICU now. It's kind of a stereotype that a lot of male nurses end up in the ICU. Do you see yourself sticking with that in the long term, or do you have any other specialties that you'd like to dip a toe in?
Yeah. So surprisingly, there's certain, we always talk about pathways. A lot of folks from ICU that I hear about, people going to CRNA school, or going to at least like nurse practitioner status, in like critical care, and they kind of stick with that.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in
Yeah.
psychology, so that's a little different. I don't get to encounter that as, I guess, frequently in the ICU.
Right.
But,
Maybe just with the nurses and the staff.
Yeah. It was always kind of in the back of my mind also, as an LVN, that eventually I did want to go into one of the military branches as a reservist.
Yeah.
And I was kind of looking in psychology for the psych NPs, and especially, because I'm a little older than a lot of the new grads, I'm in my 30s. So a lot of people in my class, like high school or early college, they were in the military and they kind of came back a little different, you could say.
Yeah.
And, just being able to reach out to other people in that sense, and, mental health is becoming more, I guess, more spotlighted.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely a route that I do kind of want to take more look into. A lot of mental health, it really wears down on people, and that ultimately could, physically affect them as well. And they might be going through something mentally for years and not realize it. So that's in a sense like a holistic care aspect that I'm kind of looking into right now. But still early in the ICU. I'm gonna get my experience in and kind of see where I ultimately go. But at the moment, it's kind of looking like a psychiatric mental health practitioner.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, it's definitely needed, especially once the pandemic is over. It's not ever probably going to be over, but once we acclimate and adjust to our new normal, I think that's going to be the next pandemic in a sense. Is everybody left in its wake for sure. Advice for new nurses, since you are one essentially, and I know you have background with your LVN, but what do you have, seeing as you're kind of going through it right now? What do you have advice wise for aspiring nurses coming in?
The biggest thing is to stick with it, and they tell you that in prereqs and nursing school, and the whole way through, and even studying for NCLEX, when folks are stressing out, they're like, stick with it. I feel like that's going to be their first year, and it's absolutely going to be my first year. We went through all the trials of getting to this point, so at least according to the board, we're good enough to practice. So just consistently knowing that this is a ongoing learning process. And let's see, I've been in now for 9 weeks. And I would already say probably week 3, I was just like sitting in the supply room and I was like, man, is this for me? Like, I went through 8 years. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed. It just comes kind of with the territory. Especially for those that are going through school, when the pandemic started, or now, of course.
Absolutely.
The education was impacted slightly, in a sense that at the time hospitals were kind of closed off to students doing clinical rotations. So that hands-on is definitely a significant advantage, I guess you could say, like compared to not having it. So like I'm the perfect example of getting a full-on hands-on experience as an LVN, and then RN school. I feel like if I didn't have that, it would have been a little tougher. And then translating that into working, I'm like, man, I wish I had a little bit more time, but I'm getting it now, and gotta stick with it, study a little bit at home, take that time for self-care also, but just stick it out. The day will end. Regardless of how much on fire things might seem. It'll be okay.
Oh God, I had so many. My background's in the ER, and I had so many moments like that where I'm just like, the clock will keep ticking forward. I just need to not die.
We're not going faster staring at it, but
But I think you bring up such a good point, because I think when you want to go to nursing school, and when you're in nursing school, you tend to idealize the next step, and there's no like kicking back in your chair with your hands clasped behind your head, you never get to that point where you feel like you made it. Maybe when you do feel like that, like you might want to question why you feel that way in a profession where you constantly are always learning, So I think having that expectation, like you were saying, that there are always going to be challenging days, and especially if you have aspirations of a advanced degree, that you're just going to maybe feel like you don't know what you're doing for longer than you do.
Right.
Like everybody else feels like that too. So you get through it together, you know. Working conditions, how's it been for you guys out there? I know we're in our like 80 millionth different wave of COVID and
Right.
variants. Right. So how are things in where you're working, you know, without like betraying your employer?
Well, you know, being new grad, this is kind of all I know, so I think it's doing great.
Yeah.
You know, everyone on our unit is very supportive. You know, and especially in the ICU, they definitely went through it last year. So they are totally aware of how it could be perceived as being a new grad. So they're definitely supportive on our unit. Preceptors as well. You know, we'll get the patients coming in, and you know, you have that internal thought. You have thoughts of like, well, this could have kind of been avoided possibly. You know, we never really know, but you just remember that we went into this profession, and we have to do the best that we can to keep people going if they, you know, wish.
Right.
Of course. So, you know, conditions wise, it's stressful, but I think that just comes with any territory of nursing, and especially in the ICU. Definitely different level of stress, I think, and you being the ED as well back then, you know, I'm sure it's just a little different, but yeah, getting through it with all the nurses around me. Camaraderie is great on the unit, brings morale up, and everyone's trying to be a team player, especially for the new folks. They're trying to make sure that we're okay.
That's good to hear. I mean, a little bit of stress, at least one silver lining to it seems to be like quieting down that nurses eat your young feeling. When I was in school, and I think the quieter days were like, people were a little bit bored. It was like, let's torture the newbies.
A little bit of hazing, I guess.
Too damn busy. We need you. Don't want to scare you away. Do you get the sense that they're like, I don't want to say grateful, but like happy for the new blood, like breath of fresh air that's coming in with new grads?
I guess you could say that, yes. You know, in a way that the new grads are hoping for us to integrate well. So it kind of alleviates, you know, potential like travel nurses that, you know, where you may see them for a little bit, or you may only see them for a shift. So I think that for the unit currently, to see like a face that's like consistent, like, okay, this is someone we can, you know, bond with a little bit more than just the casual, like, hello. If it was someone that would only be there for, you know, 4 weeks or so. So yeah, I definitely see you know, they'll make jokes like, oh, you're still here, you made it. I'm like, yeah, definitely still here. I hope to stick it out. So yeah, definitely building up relations. So I feel that, you know, after 9 weeks for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, we talk a lot about burnout on our site and in other interviews that we've done. Do you feel like I mean, with 3 months in, I mean, you mentioned that you've had moments of being overwhelmed. Do you think enough of them have strung together where you have felt that burnout feeling? And if not you, do you see other nurses going through that?
So, you know, maybe like after 2-3 shifts in a row, there's times where I'm just like, I didn't really sleep that well to begin with. So I'm just like exhausted, and after having a few tough times in a row, I think it's just natural where you just kind of want to just throw your gloves on the ground and get in essence at home, or, you know, throw your scrubs on the ground and be like, okay, I need to sit in the bathtub for a while.
Yeah, right.
It just comes with that initial reaction, I think, and then a little bit of self-care kind of goes a long way. So I think I've definitely felt you know, a little bit overwhelmed and stress, mainly being a new grad. I think that's what contributes to it. You know, getting used to a whole different charting system, getting used to a different schedule, and then having to, if there's things at home also, I could see, my other cohort mates, everyone's kind of dealing with it in a different way, but I think overall everyone has the same kind of level of like, okay, this is a different level of stress. But you kind of get accustomed to it because you get a little better at it, every day, as long as you strive for, okay, like at first, like my charting wasn't as fast on the computers. And, I can say after 9 weeks, I'm at 100% better than I was day one. Right. And that definitely alleviates a lot of stress that I had on day one.
Yeah. I remember walking onto the unit and just being like, how are these people moving this like the priority, like getting all your priorities in a row, and just I'm like, I feel like I'm as competent as like the people around me, but I just marveled at it. I couldn't understand how, but you learn to think that way. It's like a different mode that your brain switches into.
Right.
Just having 8 million browser windows open at one time, and somehow it all works out, and you don't have to expend as much energy to remember stuff. You just kind of are in the flow of it. But
a little muscle memory. I remember, getting an error in my line and trying to figure it out my first week. I'm like, oh crap, okay, I guess I'll grab a syringe, I think.
Yeah.
Like going through the process, right? And it's just beeping at you. You don't really know where the silence button is at first.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just sounds chaotic just for something as easy as the air in your line. And then now it's just like, okay, delay, get the syringe, get the air out.
Yeah, meanwhile you're like parting with one hand.
Yeah, exactly. Talk to someone else in the corner. So it gets better. So that's the whole thing about, sticking it out.
Yeah.
It'll get better.
Yeah. I was a patient recently when I delivered my sons last year, and I had a very like brand new nurse, and I just remember I never tell like anybody that I'm a nurse too, because I just think it'll freak them out. But I could like literally see her like going through the steps of things in her head, and I just was like, oh, you're doing so good. Like, keep going. It is so overwhelming, and you like don't want the patient to know, it's my second day. But I
usually don't break it to them that I'm a new grad until like it's great, and about 10 hours have passed. That's that knock on wood thing that last 2 hours nothing goes wrong. So
one of the my most favorite nurses, actually he was Filipino, that I worked with, this guy Roberto, and he was like clearly a very seasoned nurse. He'd been there for like 100 years, and every patient that he went into, like he was the one you always called to get the really hard sticks. And he would always say, like, I watched the video 3 times before I came in here, like right as he was about to get him. And it like always got a good laugh. And it's like, I'm gonna keep that in my back pocket. So for me, it's actually true, but for him,
definitely being in the new grad, well, specifically we'll talk about like the new grad cohort. It's just knowing that we all came from essentially kind of different backgrounds, a little bit all over the country. I actually got into this nursing residency program. Everyone has different backgrounds prior to nursing also. And just knowing that we're kind of in the same hospital system, we're going through the same policies and procedures, and knowing that, we're all at the same level of stress, and we're all newbies. And it's easier, I think, to bounce things off. You don't want to, I feel like some people just have a little bit of reservation, express themselves to like more seasoned nurses on the floor.
Sure.
I definitely heard that from my cohort already. Like they're just not as comfortable speaking up because of how they're feeling. So they always come with the general, I'm doing good, kind of robotic response. That people can see through that once you hear enough. So it's not really fooling anybody. So, but when it's amongst ourselves, we're able to talk to each other. There's just a comfortable level of, okay, these are people that get me. And I'm sure that I'll talk to my preceptors about it, and then they'll give stories about how they were when they were new grads. So in general, just nursing, everyone kind of went through it at a different, it could be different times at different levels, but everyone has shared experiences. So being able to just talk to other colleagues, and it could be someone that's about to retire, that has a whole bound of wisdom from someone that's just in it with you and definitely can be able to relate to each other. There's definitely something to bond with at any level.
Yeah, I think there's something that we're seeing too. I mean, a lot of nurses have been through trauma essentially this past year with the amount that they've worked and the conditions they've worked in, and like having patients die, like a lot of patients die. And we're just trying to provide a space where, exactly like you said, where you just are with people that completely understand you without having to explain anything, and then just sharing that space together. It really doesn't matter what you do or what you talk about. I think just being around people that are going through the same things as you, it's just like a level of therapy right now, and self-care, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're hoping to provide that here, but I think you bring up a really good example, and I hope more hospitals and facilities do these grad programs, or can offer them more as like the norm as opposed to like the standard preceptorship, because it really, like, you're such a great example of how beneficial it is. But in the meantime, we're hoping to provide a little bit of a soft landing place for nurses that maybe don't have that, or nursing students that don't have that. Well, we're almost wrapped up here. Is there any topics you wanted to bring up? I see that you have like a ton of pediatric experience with like long-term care pediatrics.
Yeah, it's always a funny story to tell, because out of all my nursing classes, peds and OB is always like not my best. And I ended up working in pediatrics.
Yeah, right.
And I actually still continue to work in pediatrics. So as an LVN, I was working home health for a little bit. So I worked with special needs patients. And that eventually led to working at a designated daycare facility for children with special needs. Yeah. So you can imagine like I guess in your head, whatever a daycare would look like with your own kids, yeah. And then kind of replace that with like kids that might be on trachs, kids that might have seizures on a frequent basis, and to them that's their norm. Right. Kids with G-tubes. So yeah, all that was very rewarding actually. Yeah. We're working with them. It came to a period I was just like seeing a kid that's like running around, and I'm like, I wasn't used to that, because I was surrounding myself with all these other kids and adapting to their needs and having fun and treating them like like nothing ever changed. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a rewarding experience, and that led me to working at another children's hospital actually, an outpatient clinic, and it kind of continued. And surprisingly, in my ICU, not only do we take adults, we take pediatrics too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's I'm getting the full spectrum in my unit.
That's unusual, huh?
Yep. So and not only that,
do both.
Right. There's an age limit of 8 and over.
Okay.
But or I'm sorry, 9. But having a 9-year-old compared to 88-year-old, there's a huge gap.
Right, and the families too.
Right.
For an 88-year-old versus a 9-year-old.
Right. Exactly. In our unit also, we're not only just like a medical ICU or surgical. We're actually both. So yeah, so we're both with a age spectrum of 9 until whenever.
Wow, that's great though for your experience. I mean, you're gonna see a little bit of everything. So.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad I still got the even though in school they're in my best suit, it's still very rewarding, just like with adults, but some a little bit more special, at least to me when it's a kid.
Well, awesome having you on. I hope you're on our ND Social site. Have you checked that out at all? That's our little offshoot of our main site.
Yeah, I was checking out we're talking about the website, or? So
the website is just nursedeck.com, and then we have another site that's more of like a real-time social networking site called ND Social. It's social.nursedeck.com, and it's only for verified nurses. So you're really just surrounded by, and nursing students. We take nursing students as well. But it's great. There's all kinds of different little niche groups that have popped up, and it's a great place to spend a little time if you're scrolling away anyway. So
All right, yeah, definitely something to check out and contribute to, especially if there's students out there. I'm always trying
Absolutely.
to keep up with the motivation.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Today's nurses are not just skilled clinicians, they're diverse and fiercely dedicated. Some of the most compassionate advocates you know. In fact, being a nurse today means you represent one of the most trusted and essential figures in our society. So, what's essential for nurses? Community. A community for nurses, created by nurses. At NurseDeck, we're building a nursing community like no other. One that unites nurses with passion and purpose and empowers them into action. Whether you're just beginning your career or have already put in decades as a seasoned clinician, there's a place for you at NurseDeck.